All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 2. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill.
I don't want to do the, the flaunting or talking trash. Like, I'm over it. O'Win Willson, not a bad start, but I'm not going to get into the trash talk and how we're a team and you wouldn't answer our combined FaceTime today. I just want to be sportsman, right? Sportsman is the term. That's
really?
it.
Telling
Okay.
you.
I just want to be fair. But I'll tell you what, man. They had some guy posted one vid of the 4 stages of your face when you were being informed of O'Win Willson becoming a dynasty. That was a tough look.
Well, it's out there now.
Because,
Like, I can't get the cat back in the bag. I'm a meme.
When it started out, the video is so great. It's so great. You're like, you end by saying, it's not us that we're talking about us being the greatest gambling team of all time. It was Vegas. And then he goes, yeah, and I have something to say. And you just stood there and you went into shock.
It actually was. It was shocking. And the video is stunning because you're right. There's 4 seasons of Bryan Hayes right there. And then the comment at the end where you're like, whoa, it was unbelievable. I still think it's slightly gutless.
Oh, it's completely
not
gutless.
Slightly.
It's very gutless.
But these guys, they can't gloat. The only thing they should thank is this Kadarius Toney kid.
Exactly.
This guy.
He should be playing for the Edmonton Elks this weekend. I'm telling you right now, if I'm a kicker that has ever played professional football, and I look at it, and I have been cut or on the verge of being cut as a kicker because I have missed a chip shot to win a game or a long field goal to tie a game. And coaches will go right up to a kicker, shake their hand, look them in the eyes, and say, I don't ever want to see you again. Thanks for your services. Now get the hell out of here. But Kadarius Toney, who single-handedly lost the game last night, single-handedly.
Yeah,
he was responsible for 10 points, 7 going towards Detroit, 3 being taken away from Kansas City. That's a win. That's a cover. It was disgusting, and there's a lot for me to break down today. I didn't know you could do like a 3-way FaceTime call. I wasn't aware that you could patch in. Oh, yeah. I had no idea. So
I did that during the pandemic. It was awesome.
I'd never experienced that before. I've never had anyone try to call me using that. I've never tried to FaceTime multiple people at the same time. I just
wanted to circle the wagons and just say, like talk football, whatever, me, you, and Luke, and hash it out, and that's it.
Yeah, well, I had to flush you. It was a mandatory flushing. I saw it. I looked at it. It said Luke Wilson and Jeff O'Neill FaceTiming you, and I immediately flushed it. And I said, I just can't do it with O-Dog and Company. There's no way I can do it today.
No, dude. The best is when the grappler sends a note and calls it Bryan Hayes and Company.
I know.
Now it's Hayes and Company.
Now
you got nothing.
Hayes
you got no mojo.
I got nothing. But I haven't made a pick yet. I haven't made a pick yet.
And I apologize to the gentleman because I don't know his last name. I hit my ball left on 9 this morning, and a gentleman, like a distinguished gentleman, got out of his cart on the 9th or the first hole. I was going down 9. He pulled out his club and he goes, Team O'Win Willson got that one last night, didn't they? And I said, screw that other guy. And we gave a little head nod and we just went on our way.
He
loved it.
Very similar situation today. I was at Scarborough with Frankie DeChambeau, who absolutely destroys golf balls. I've never seen anyone that's like you crush a ball. Oh, he was blowing it past anything you would hit.
Dude,
he crushes golf balls.
I know. I told you that. That's why his name's Frank
DeChambeau. And my buddy Jay Calafiore, Chris Slauson. You guys probably know Sloss, big money man in the hockey world. And we were out there having a great time. And we were coming down, just about to tee off on 17 at Scarborough. And there was another group going down 9. And the guy yells out, he's like, Hazy B. I'm like, hey, guys, how are you? He goes, O'Win Willson, man, it's a pretty good team. I'm like, I can't take this from people out and about, right? I can't see people on the street yelling it to me. I can't be on a golf course, have people yelling it to me. It was a worst-case scenario last night for a couple of different reasons. One, they covered. 2, the Lions won outright. And 3, afterwards, I realized the way this is going to shake out, the Monday nighter is Bills-Jets. That's your game. If you take the Jets to cover and then they cover and win, it's the worst start in the history of starts for me. I get sandbagged at an absolutely outrageous rate by Luke Wilson pulling the pin and going Benedict Arnold on me. And then Lions cover, Lions win, possibly Jets cover, Jets win. It could be a really tough start for me.
It
really tough start.
Could. I'll tell you what, that Luke he took a baseball bat to the back of your kneecaps.
Yeah,
That's
did.
what he did.
He really did.
Like, to see your face, you're like, this guy's going to just pump my tires right now. He's going to talk about how good a team we were.
Yeah.
And you were throwing up a minute later.
I had no idea. I genuinely had no idea. Noodles,
I'll tell you what,
attest
though.
to it.
Hang on a sec. I'll tell you what, you got to give props to my boy Danny Campbell. The most obvious fake punt call of all time. As soon as they lined up, I'm like, this is the perfect time for the fake punt. First game of the season. Everybody's so regimented. It's just like standard stuff. You're a little bit sleepy. And I knew it was coming. And Kansas City fell for it. And it was a massive turning point in the game. Because your boy, who you said is not capable of pulling the trigger on maneuvers like that, and you called him a dummy 3 days ago, he had a hell of a game.
Well, I don't recall calling him a dummy necessarily. I don't think that's
You said, how can
happened.
a guy that's running around, talking like a moron, doing jumping jacks, do it like win games?
It is a little bit much, though. This guy is, he was giving us his coffee order at Starbucks where he's got, all these shots of espresso and that. Like,
that's fine.
It's too
that's
much.
Fine.
Because
that's
when
fine.
things go south, we'll see how big of a hero he is when things go south.
And by the way,
that's it, Noodles.
What is this talk? Was it Mike Tirico that brought up the idea of an asterisk?
Which is asinine.
Yeah.
That is, I like Mike. He's a veteran broadcaster. He's a legend of sport. That's an asinine comment. I'm sorry.
That's the kind of comment. Fans are so irrational, right? And fan bases, they all think whoever isn't all in on their team hates their team naturally, right?
Oh, you don't think the Lions hate Mike Tirico's?
Would have been absolutely picking up TVs all over Detroit and throwing them through windows last night, because that was the biggest win of the last 30 years, basically, for the Lions. That's prime time. It's opening night. Patrick Mahomes, Arrowhead, and they get a win, and Tirico goes, well, it's with an asterisk. I mean, come on. Like, Kelsey didn't play and Jones didn't play. I can't believe he said that.
Comment. I can't either. And you talk about, like, dumping on small markets. Collinsworth said before the game, okay, people are pumping up Detroit a little bit. They won 8-10 to finish the season last year, but you got to come in here and win one. Then people might actually start taking you a little bit seriously. And they got the win. And he goes ahead and calls it an asterisk? Come on.
Comment.
I thought it was awesome, though, because you know what? Think of fan bases outside of Detroit. Like, if we go back in the history, like the Leafs losing to L.A., do you put up and say, okay, Gretzky, high stock
games.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
What if Ottawa came in here, Noodles, and they beat the Leafs, and no Marner and no Matthews, and Gordo tosses out, there's an asterisk on that. Like, I don't know. People in Ottawa would go crazy.
You're right. The fan base who won and is happy would go crazy. Outside of that, people are like, how many times do we see that? Excuses are for losers, and this is an excuse. But, they didn't, they won, they didn't, but this happened. The ref gave them this, or that goal should have counted. Like, that's what pro sports is all about. They won fair and square last night. You're right. Kelsey and Jones weren't dressed. But I just love the idea of it. I think the fact that it rattled the cages, it's ridiculous. But when you go back and think of pro sports, how many times it's health, it's opportunity.
It comes up all the time, but that's the point. There's always injuries in pro sports, and I've never heard. It's one thing for fans to say it. Like if the Chief fans came out and said, it doesn't even count because... Again, it's petty, it's ridiculous, it's a sore loser take. Fine. Mike Tirico is the national broadcast voice of the NFL. He is right down the middle. He is not rooting for teams, and he absolutely took, to steal your phrase, a sky dump all over the state of Michigan. Not just the city of Detroit, the state of Michigan. They had to chew on.
He was doing a forearm, or he was doing a bicep stand on top of the dump.
Yes.
Did he address it today?
I haven't seen him saying he possibly did. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if next week he said, "Hey, I just wanted to address something after the game. I happened to mention that this was basically an exhibition game because Travis Kelce didn't play and Chris Jones." But listen, I think from Detroit's standpoint, they don't have to explain anything. You get a win in that situation, that's a great win. Joking aside, I know I goof on the Lions and Dan Campbell. That's a great win. It's against Mahomes, Reed, Arrowhead's going crazy. You got that win. That's a great, great win. That's something you should be ecstatic about. And I think the glass half full in Detroit is they didn't even play that well offensively. Defensively, they played pretty well. Again, the receivers on Kansas City were an absolute disaster. But Jerry Goff can be better. I think that run game probably gets better. Like Detroit leaving there with a win and probably feeling very good about their chances of improving. That's impressive. Like full credit.
Yeah.
KC always settles in with that group of players and that quarterback, but they're going down to Jacksonville this week, man.
Tough.
Like that's like
real tough.
The stats start pumping out after a team starts 0-2. Like if something happens in Jayville, they're like, oh, the odds of making the playoffs are now because a team that goes 0-2, it's like drastically negative odds of making the playoffs.
It's really tough. Really, really tough to make it after starting 0-2. Really tough.
What do you do with the Toney kid? Like, that's the thing. I felt bad. Like, the memes that were going on last night, like, just there's that one where the guy's driving like a dumpster down a field. Like, they're like, Kadarius Toney leaving the field like he's in a dumpster. Like, it's just insanity.
You got to build the kid back up. There's no other way.
I know, but that's the thing.
I think it's the opposite way, personally. I think they might maybe not cut bait, but if you're Mahomes, how could you possibly trust him again? The pick six, Mahomes could not have handed that off any better to him. It was in between his hands. It pops out and is in the end zone. And on the last drive, that puts them in field goal position.
The other one over the middle was insane, too. It was right in his hands.
Right in his hand. And that puts them in field goal position. That's what I'm saying. He handed over a pick six. That's 7 points. And then he threw away 3 points. That's a 10-point swing because of Kadarius Toney.
Well, I don't see how you cutting him today. You think they're cutting him?
I don't know. I don't think they're going to cut him, but I find it hard to believe that Mahomes is in a huddle next week saying, "Hey, Tones, get open. I'm looking
for you." You're my guy.
Like I can't imagine he's going to target him again next week. But he may not have a choice because if Kelsey's not going to play, man, his knee better improve quick because they need that cat. They need Travis Kelce.
I'll tell you what, that Jones cat sitting in the crowd watching that, I guarantee you that helped his cause.
What do you guys think about that? If you had a player on your team, star player, who, like, he would have paid for that suite. The team would not have supplied him with that suite. If you have a star player on opening night at home, the banner's going up, but he's not in the lineup because there's a contract dispute, and he's up in a luxury suite with his agents.
So what? What do you want him to do?
I don't know. It just felt like it was a weird look.
Basement?
No, but it just
what's he doing there? He's not playing.
Though. Yeah, like I would not want to be visible.
Yeah, but he's not on the field. He's up in the luxury suite.
So what? It's making a statement. It's making a move. You want to be on TV. You show the agents. You want to be around. And if I'm a good player, if I'm Mahomes, I'm going to ownership and the general manager saying, "You better get his ass on the roster."
Mm.
I get that. But it just from it, don't you think people be yelling up like, "We need you out here, let's go," like type of thing? Like it to me, being visible like that, I don't know if it's applying pressure to management, especially because they lost and could have used him. But it's just a weird look. Like, it's optics. Like, doesn't have a cast on his hand or anything. He's just up there because he doesn't have a contract. Like,
right.
I don't know if you want to be visible like that. I wouldn't want to be.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's one thing to show up at maybe charity events, which I believe he's been doing, which I think is really cool. Like, he's still, he's employed by the team. He's a big figure in Kansas City, showing up at charity events and stuff like that, representing himself in the team.
Dude, it's a calculated move, Hayes.
Of course.
The agent said, "I'm going to get in touch with Thursday Night Football, and we're gonna make it. We're gonna make a scene. We're gonna make it known that we're there, and that's what that play was.
Yeah,
that was a calculated move.
Yeah, it happened.
It was.
And then
it was a great game, though.
It was a cool game to have back, and it came down to the wire. There was a lot of different things that came out of it. But flowers to Dan Campbell and the Lions, and I think my concerns about what will happen if the Lions start winning some games came to life afterwards. Because do you want to hear Dan Campbell on the podium last night? Again, these guys have never made the playoffs.
That's all right.
And it's one win. They have 16 more games left. And here's what Dan Campbell had to say post-game.
I didn't learn anything. I got verification on what I already knew. And this is a resilient team. It already was a resilient team, and we added pieces to that resilient team. So we're built to handle some stuff, and we did that today against a very good opponent.
So it's just going to be heroic comment after heroic comment from Dan Campbell. That's what's coming, and that's fine. And shout out to Detroit. Like, they may hate on me, and I'm sure a lot of people down there probably do, but at least Mike Tirico's putting a shield up for everyone that's been, taking shots at Detroit. Right? Mike Tirico all of a sudden is possibly enemy number one, an asterisk. It really is wild. All right, Marcellus Wiley in about 15 minutes. Luke Wilson will be back on the show today. Team O'Win Willson, they're 1-0. I still haven't made a pick, though, so I'm fine. We got a few picks coming up in just over an hour. A 1 o'clock game, the 4 o'clock game, then the Sunday nighter Cowboys at the Giants. The Monday nighter, again, will be Bills at Jets. So we got some big games in week one. It's going to be great. There's some news on the Jays. We'll come back and get into that. Update status on Bo Bichette. Big series with Kansas City in town. Kansas City is obviously a horrible baseball team, and you really got to start flooring it here. If you're the Jays, you got 22 games left. And our buddy Pierre LeBrun, he caught up with Brad Treliving, the new GM of the Leafs, and Brad had some interesting things to say about Sheldon Keefe and about William Nylander. We'll tell you about that still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We've got our buddy Marcellus Wiley coming up in a few moments, get his take on the Lions win last night. Travis Kelce being out. If he's out again next week, what happens? And we'll start looking ahead to other games, including Bengals-Browns, where Joe Burrow is now a very, very rich man.
Whew.
And he kind of sewered the opener of the NFL, didn't he? He kind of jumped in line there right before kickoff. News breaks that Joe Burrow got that contract. But we'll catch up with Marcellus in a few moments. Jays Royals tonight. Bo Bichette activated off the IL. Bo is back tonight. That's big. And Danny Jansen had surgery on his finger, so he's out for at least the rest of the regular season. But Bichette back, and we'll see.
Wouldn't Goodell tell the Bengals, either they would have known the day before? Why would they want that coming out a couple hours before kickoff?
Yeah. It was 10 minutes before kickoff, though.
Or whatever it was. It was just stupid.
I was surprised by that. We talk about it with the Stanley Cup Finals. We talk about it with the NBA Final, that the commissioners are like, if you have any news, it's not happening while our big stuff's about to take place, right? Get it in before we get to the Cup Final, and then afterwards it's free reign to do whatever you want. I mean, last night was not the Super Bowl, but it was big breaking news right before the game started.
Don't you think there's two athletes that I can think of that do that maybe more than often? LeBron is one of them. Doesn't matter what's going on. LeBron will put himself right in front of it.
Yep.
And Tommy Brady's done that a little bit recently.
Yeah, he has.
Wasn't it the last couple of years? Hey, not sure. And posted that picture on Instagram, whether he's walking in, walking out.
Right.
Those two athletes, they don't care what's going on. They were larger than the sport.
Yeah, that's true. Brady had a couple of those examples where it was weird timing and trying to get people buzzing on what the meaning of the tweet is or the meaning of the Instagram post. And it's you guys are worth $1 billion. Don't you have something better to do? Why are you?
Wasn't Brady, didn't he have one where he was just There was the entrance to the stadium, and people didn't know if he was going in or coming out.
That's what Noodles is saying. That was the
just
one.
Walking in, walking out.
You couldn't tell. Was he retiring or not? I guess it turns out I think he was leaving New England, though.
Yes,
right?
He did sign in Tampa.
I believe so. I think that was the end of his run in New England, but it was not the end of – that wasn't like he was retiring. I guess it did turn out to mean something.
But it's just a big story. Like, you just want to embrace something, and to their credit, because they are the GOATs of their own sport, but it's just like LeBron always, something going on, he always got his hand up for, like he's going to be, there's a storyline, right? Like, I just feel like those two athletes, I don't know if there's anybody else that would do that.
Those two come to mind in North American sports for sure. And what's interesting about LeBron is, his agent and best friend, Rich Paul, was doing the podcast tour recently and had mentioned, part of his reasoning. Now, again, he's incredibly biased. It's his best friend and his agent. Of course, he's going to say that he thinks LeBron is greater than Jordan. But I think a part of his case that he was making was that LeBron has to live and operate in a news cycle that is 24/7 now, where it wasn't the case with Michael Jordan, which I think is accurate. And we can play this clip here in a moment. Why don't we play it, and then we'll come back and I can finish my thought. This is Rich Paul. I got to remember what podcast he was on. I'll reference it afterwards. But here's Rich Paul earlier this week on LeBron.
Mike transcended the game. When Kobe came, Kobe was a silhouette of Mike, right? That's everything, which is great. But LeBron is the first player to have to deal with a 24/7, 365 news cycle of sports and opinions from those that's not even capable or carry the expertise to give a valid opinion, right?
So that's talking about one guy, and that's Skip Bayless, who he's referring to right there.
Probably the last part, yes. Who has made his career on just hating LeBron. Like that's
he starts every show with talking about LeBron, no matter what time of year, and that's exactly who he's referring to.
Yeah, 100%. And LeBron's a choke artist, and he's not that great or whatever. It's comically contrived. That was on the Gilbert Arenas podcast, Gil's Arena. But like you just mentioned, Noodles, LeBron is guilty of creating his own storm all the time.
Yes.
So you can't blame the constant media attention when you can't wait to create your own constant attention. Like you can't have it both ways if you're LeBron. And it sounds like that's what they want. Like it's a crazy amount of coverage. Okay, well, LeBron's also on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, saying crazy stuff all the time that leads to a reaction. You can't complain about that reaction when LeBron created the reaction.
He showed up to his own game. Now, he was injured, but he was drinking wine and sitting in the box with Magic Johnson, was he not?
Yes,
he walked in, I think, with a glass of wine.
He did.
Did he not?
Yes. That is factual. That happened.
So if you don't want the attention, like, do you not think you get out of the car? Guaranteed, he had a chauffeur, gets out of the car with a glass of wine. Like, somebody's going to snap a photo of that. You're going to be on film. Like, he had no problem with that. So he had to have known that would be a story, or at least be, a topic that people would talk about.
It's one of many where LeBron has, spoken out on, and he's entitled to it. I'm not trying to muzzle him. Don't get me wrong.
No, not at all.
What I'm saying is you can't say that there's too much attention on me now. And Jordan didn't have that when you drag in a lot of the attention based on your own actions. Like if LeBron was simply driving in, playing ball, going home, and living a Kawhi Leonard lifestyle where you never see him, you never hear from him, you have no idea what he's doing, then that would be different. But that's not the way LeBron operates. No. So, and again, I think the GOAT conversation is based on the field of play, right? Like they're both larger than life. You get into a conversation where you're talking about, Brady versus Manning, LeBron versus Jordan, Gretzky versus Lemon. You're talking all-time great, larger than life, statue-worthy, first ballot Hall of Fame types. So at that point, I think what you break down is what they do on the field of play. Like I don't give LeBron more credit because of the era he plays in based on society standards and the way society operates. They're still playing basketball. Who's better?
I don't understand what the whole basis of his comments were. Like, why does it always have to be LeBron's either the GOAT or like, what is the agent who apparently is his good friend?
Yeah, Rich Paul, they're very close.
Yes, I get that. But what is he trying to get across? It's like, is he just trying to make the statement, oh, Kobe was great, so was Mike, but this guy has to deal with news 365. Yes. Who cares?
Well, exactly. And that, I think, makes it an even weaker claim that it feels like LeBron and his camp are always trying to convince the world he's greater than Jordan.
No kidding.
And it's like, guys, right. We're not even having that conversation. It was August. It's September, but okay.
God.
They're constantly trying to push it forward. And I think minds have been made up by now. You're either Team Jordan, Team LeBron. There's a lot of people around the world that believe LeBron's the greatest. That seems like a pretty cool life.
Can't that be good enough?
But it's got to be unanimous, or it feels that way, or LeBron and his camp won't accept it. And listen, maybe Jordan won't either. Who knows? All right, here's Marcellus Wiley, former NFL All-Pro, author, founder of the Project Transition Foundation, good L.A. boy himself. Marcellus, what do you make? I don't even know how we got on this topic. We'll get to the football game in a moment. But the idea that LeBron deserves props and possibly a boost in terms of the overall point structure of GOAT status because he plays in 2023 as opposed to in 1993.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of the conversation. I really see both sides. Let's talk about it. Like what Jordan had to deal with, it was still criticism. It was just on a different scale, and it came in a different way. Everything wasn't flattering for Jordan. We obviously remember the early years when he was just too selfish to ever be a champion, just because he would score and nobody else could really keep pace. And then that turned into, well, okay, now you got everything you need, but can you overcome the Lakers, Celtics? So, growing up in that era, I still remember the criticism. It seems like it's getting forgotten because with social media, it's all in our face, and we act like yesteryear. No one ever had to deal with any negativity. That said, this is a whole different animal. It does lean on the athlete in a different way. And I'm not talking about the person as much. I'm talking about the athlete, because with more social media comes more responsibilities, comes more exposure to the good, bad, and ugly of you doing other things outside of playing ball. I remember when I got drafted and just lowly old me had to go into a room and sign 1,000 footballs. And I wasn't even like the quarterback. So imagine what he had to deal with back in the late 90s. And now fast forward to not only the quarterback, but a guy in the GOAT conversation, LeBron James, who constantly has to hear and deal and do things just because of the advent of social media. So there's something to weigh in that conversation. I don't know if it's as heavy as Rich Paul wants to make it, but there's certainly more to deal with now than you did have to yesterday.
Marcellus, I'm really excited to get into last night. I'm just so excited. I mean, it was my Lions, man.
You're a Lions
my
fan
Lions.
now. Lifelong Lions fan.
But
Loves
before
them.
we get into the meat and potatoes of what on the field, what would you be thinking if you're Detroit, whether it be Campbell, management, of Tirico's comments about the asterisk after the win?
Well, look, I think if you serve yourself best in life to know who you are instead of what other people think you are. And if I'm the Detroit Lion, I know we're a tough bunch. I know that we're talented. I know that we're going to play well this year. I'm really expecting to make the playoffs. But I also got to remember, I am a Detroit Lion. I wasn't in the playoffs last year. We are the Detroit Lions, lowly Lions. So the respect card is one thing you're fighting for, but don't get mad when people haven't given it to you yet because you haven't earned it fully. So, if I'm a short guy and someone says, hey, shorty, I'm like, yeah, you just stated the obvious. I'm a tall guy. People say, what's up? How's it doing up there? I'm like, yeah, I'm tall. So if I'm a Detroit Lion, I'm not mad at Tirico. He is not my opposition. He is not an opponent. He doesn't wear a jersey. I'm just knowing how much farther we have to go to fully get respect. And if they're satisfied right now to the point where Mike Tirico got to give them full respect, then they're not going to accomplish much this year. So I would use it as mental fuel to say this is how they still think of us, even after we beat the Super Bowl champions, despite them missing 2 of their 3 best players. So there is an asterisk by it, but I would just take it as a measurement of how far we still got to go.
Well, hey, listen, a win is a win is a win, and everything you referenced is true about their history. And now the Lions are 1-0, and they get to get out of Arrowhead with a big win. That's impressive, regardless of how it played out. But I think the storyline, leading up to it was the injuries to Kelsey and Jones. And, I think a part of it, too, Eric Bieniemy's not there anymore also, right, running that offense. Like, that hasn't come up enough. The Bieniemy was a pillar of that organization throughout this dynasty, and he's out of there. Based on what you saw last night, is there any reason Kansas City should be freaking out at all about the prospects of them still pursuing a Super Bowl this year?
Oh, absolutely. And look, people are saying they're a dynasty. People are saying they're a mid-dynasty, like they're somewhere around it. But I would say this, and I've been saying this, they were always a Travis Kelce injury away from all of a sudden have to fight tooth and nail for every single thing they get. And it probably would be the same things that they acquired. Like, you can just tell. I'm going to tell you why. And that's where they are right now. They're a Travis Kelce injury away from now being in a dogfight with Detroit. That's not a non-playoff team from last year who may be a playoff team this year. The game of football comes down to so few possessions, so few moments. It's almost funny. Like how you watch an NBA game and you're like, oh, they're up 15. And you're like, check in 5 minutes. They'll be tied or up. The other team will catch up. Football comes down to, if you look at most of the scores, one possession or fewer. It's just like 7 points or fewer. It's just always a moment here, a play there. And yesterday was a pick six. Yesterday was a Travis Kelce catch away from, like, getting a first down, keeping the drive alive, a few drops. So if I'm on the losing side and I'm in the Chiefs locker room, I find ways to feel good. If I'm in Detroit's locker room, I already feel good, but I find ways to find a way to work on things to get better. And that's the difference. So if Kelce doesn't show up, they just have little room for grace. They have little room to mess up. And if he does show up, that's when they have that gap. And that's why they are the Super Bowl champions.
Well, you mentioned a pick six. You mentioned a couple drops. That's Kadarius Toney. You waking up today? I mean, we've all had teammates. I've had games where I've cost my team wins and stuff. How do you think he feels? How do you think his team rallies around him? And do you think he gets thrown the ball next week?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're gonna build him up now. You're not gonna beat him up, but he's gonna beat himself up, and that's enough right now. He continues it, then you jump in with him and start to beat him up as a teammate. But right now, you know how bad he feels. You know how routine those plays are for him, and you know that he can easily snap back. So you're just going to play the wait-and-see game to make sure that he is going to do that. But trust me, he does it again. You're going to see even Patrick Mahomes lose his cool because Patrick Mahomes, I mean, for his stat line, that was one of the most impressive games you ever see for a quarterback with one touchdown, one interception, and like low 200 yards. It was like he was killing it. But the problem was they couldn't consistently move the ball, move the chains because of the drops, and they happened at bad times and obviously gave up points. So you leave him alone right now. He's already toxic to himself. You do not want to add to that because you don't want to defeat him. He's already broken, but you don't want him to be defeated. So he'll heal himself, and if he doesn't, then the teammates will jump in and whoop him up and get him right.
With Marcellus Wiley, that Joe Burrow contract, man, that's a lot of scratch. There's been a lot of money thrown out this summer, man. Burrow got paid, Lamar got paid, Jalen Hurts got paid, Justin Herbert got paid. And Mahomes, I'm assuming, will come up again whenever he wants to. Was that your read on it, Marcellus? Like whenever he calls up Andy Reid or the GM and says, all right, $300 million guaranteed, that's what I'm looking for, they'll just pay it to him, right? Like I would assume that's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, I think they tried this long-term approach with obviously some exit ramps built into the contract just to see how long they could keep the dynasty alive. And I think only two things that will make them trying to change course is, one, the fact that everyone has just lapped Patrick Mahomes, and it's like, okay, enough is enough. And they've talked about that already, like the kind of the respect card, like, all right, you don't want any more money, but come on now. You can't be making less money than the 10th best quarterback. But two, if there's just any indication that this dynasty is over and they need to hit a reset, then it's like, okay, what do you do then? Because now why take a haircut and it's not paying off? So that's going to be an interesting play there. That's what got Tom Brady upset at first in New England, if you remember way back. He took a haircut for Wes Welker, and then Wes Welker ends up signing in Denver, and he's looking like, hey, what did I take a haircut for?
Right.
And that was the beginning of the end. So, I think right now it's all good as long as they continue to fight for Super Bowls. But as soon as it looks like they're an early exit wild card team or maybe not even playoff looking, he's going to have to get his bag back because everybody's going to lap him by then.
Marcellus, sticking with negotiations, you saw Chris Jones in a luxury box with his agents. I'm sure that was calculated, some type of making his presence be known at the stadium. I don't know what the motivation was, but what does the early loss do to that negotiation? Does it favor him quickly, or does it expedite the process? What happens after that loss?
I don't think anything happens after that loss. It's a 1-point loss at home, and you could kind of camouflage it and say, well, Travis Kelce would have had a greater impact in that game than even a Chris Jones, right? They always say in the NFL, if you score over 21, you're supposed to win. Well, wasn't the score 21-20, so they just got close. So Travis Kelce in the building, then you get over that hump. That number, and then you got something. So Chris Jones, it was a weird look, weird optics for me, because I don't remember a player holding out that's in contention with the team showing up on property like that, grandstanding. I was like, man. So either they're on great terms and it's just like, hey, we just haven't come to terms yet, or, woo, man, the audacity of him just to show up and just flex in front of them and not participate, that's next level. But he's already said on record he's going to be there by week 8. Obviously, I don't think it's going to get to that point. But right now, I don't think yesterday moved the needle. Now, if Detroit ran up and down the field on them and blew them out, then you start looking at defense, then you start looking at, okay, we need Chris Jones. But that one, that easily, they're one drop or two away from not losing that game at all, even without Chris Jones.
With Marcellus Wiley, NBC had Aiden Hutchinson's parents mic'd up during the game last night.
I thought it was weird.
That was weird.
Yeah,
that was really weird.
They were up where Jordan Love's parents were sitting, too. They were basically outside of the stadium, or it looked like it anyway. How would you feel about that, Marcellus? Like if family members were mic'd up for our Marcellus Wiley Thursday nighter?
It did catch me as weird when I first saw it, too. I was like, wow, because now you got your family playing up to the camera. Like, you got to be on, every little thing. Yeah, great rip move. Like normally daddy's just sitting there looking at his phone or talking to his wife or ignoring her. And then now he's all in to every single thing, But then I had to check myself and realize this is a different game. This is a different entertainment product. When I used to go to the games, and we used to pull up in our fresh cars and have on our fresh clothes. And what was so funny? No one was there with a camera to take our video. No one was there taking a million pictures. And no one cared, and they didn't play it on repeat in the stadium and make little montages and sell it to all the companies and get guys extra endorsements. Now, guys I saw commercials yesterday. Guys just walking in the stadium. You can zoom in on their bag and you can zoom in on their jeans and buy them right there. And the guys are probably getting a cut of it. It's just like, if you want the money, you're going to have to do the things you don't want to do. That's what they say. They always pay you the big bucks not to do what you want to do, but do the things you don't want to do. And I don't think many players want their parents mic'd up, but at the same time, it's good optics for the entertainment product out there and good for the casual fan.
Well, here we go, Marcellus. One game down. We got a lot more to go, man. It's going to be a fun season. Great catching up with you, buddy. Have a great weekend. We'll do it again soon.
Okay, brothers. Take care, guys. Let's do it.
There's Marcellus Wiley, former NFL All-Pro, author and founder of the Project Transition Foundation. Luke Wilson in about 45 minutes. We got Mike Johnson coming up. Brad Treliving had a little sit-down chat with our boy Pierre LeBrun. Some interesting comments about William Nylander and his status, the Sheldon Keefe contract extension. And I saw Timmy Stutzlo with a comment on Alex DeBrincat. Tell you about that. We'll get into it. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, our buddy Mike Johnson will join us in about 15 minutes. Luke Wilson coming up, formerly of Team Luke Bryan. I have a couple of those stupid hats around here. I'm going to burn one of those hats. I'm going to burn one of those hats this weekend. I'll post it on my Instagram account. I will. I should.
What was the garage behavior at your neighbors last night?
No, nothing. I actually ended up, by the time I got home, got the kids down, I just said, you know what, I'm going to watch here. I'm just going to take care of business over here. I don't need any funny business. Got to work tomorrow.
Does he hover, though? Does he hey, text?
No, there's nothing. It's more so generally if they're out there, it's like an acknowledgement that we're here to have a good time, and if anyone wants to come by, come on by. Right? It's one of those things.
Fair.
And the amazing part of it is sometimes you get different times of the day and different times of the week that floor you, right? You're like, man, that's wild. It's like 11 a.m. on Tuesday. But all right.
The garage is open.
And there's an open sign back there. But all right. It's all good. Everyone's having a good time.
Love it.
That's what you're looking for, right? Great people, great neighbors. Man, we got lucky.
Exactly.
And I've changed a lot. Like, you guys know how I used to be. When I first moved out here, like, I grew up in the city, which is wild because there's so many people, yet I don't remember us. Like, we were friendly with neighbors growing up, but I don't remember us having friends on the street. Like,
so you basically moved in there and you were like, Aaron, close the blinds and don't even acknowledge anyone.
Yeah, I would motor right into the garage. The garage door would close, and that would effectively be it. It's not. You'd give a little wave, here or there, but it was not a stop and chat situation for years. And now, I consider myself a man of the people out here. Right, the kids are out playing, having beers on the street on the weekends. I'm a real suburban type of lifestyle kind of guy.
I don't mind that. I like that you're embracing, but you have like a cool neighborhood too. Like if your neighbors were like losers, then you just honk and wave and in you go.
Yeah,
but the fact that you're buddies with your neighbor, I'm buddies with my neighbors. They're great.
There you go.
I was at my neighbors the other night. Joe's had a cigar and a whiskey. It was nice.
The cigars, you gotta like that. That's a lifestyle. If you're a cigar guy, it is a lifestyle, right? Because you're like cigars, man. I was at an event a couple weeks ago up in Muskoka, and there were a lot of cigar smokers. Like it was a big cigar. And I just couldn't get there, man. I was like, I don't know.
Well,
I'm not a cigar.
Do you ever get in a car with cigar, like regular cigar guy that goes windows up and he tickles it into it's the worst smelling car on earth.
Yeah. Cigar smoke you can't lose, man. It's got to go through like a cleaning cycle multiple times before it's out of your clothing. Oh. It's steeped into your hair, like everything.
Ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ugly. But you got when in Rome, you got to do it, right?
That's right.
Other
Every
people,
once in a while,
just have a nice cigar, and like it's not like I'm getting the Colt wine tips, that you pick up the liquor. Like you get a nice cigar. Mm-hmm. I don't mind it.
Okay, all right,
tough
good
on the
to
throat,
hear.
Though.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, man. Like, especially a cigar. If you're smoking a cigar for like a half an hour, it's ridiculous. All right, hour 2 coming up. Mike Johnson will join us. Luke Wilson will join us. All right, so we've got picks for the 1 o'clock games, the 4 o'clock games, and the Sunday nighter. All right, we'll save the Monday nighter, of course, for Monday's show. So Luke's coming up and Mike Johnson's coming up. We'll tell you what Brad Treliving had to say about what is next on his to-do list as the GM of the Maple Leafs. We'll get into that. Tim Stützle talking about Alex DeBrincat. More into the football game last night. And Jay's Royals kicking off down at the Dome tonight. Hour 2 up next. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.